Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization. We're going to take you through the events of some Bigfoot sightings that happened in the Book Cliffs of Utah. I grew up hearing about how the Book Cliffs are one of the best places in Utah for elk hunting. A lot of elk hunters love to draw out there. It's just a plethora of elk, bear, deer, and pronghorn. When I started studying the Bigfoot phenomenon, I wasn't surprised at all that there's Bigfoot sightings in the Book Cliffs because it's just full of food resources, including game. We've brought you to the location that Ron Johnson writes to us at RMSO about. This is what he writes. Here is our Bigfoot sightings you requested from a comment I made on your post. He commented on a post over 50 Utah Bigfoot encounters listed with BFRO. Here's what he writes. Document 1 is the first email sent to me from Philip telling me about his sighting while driving home from work on May of 2012. He works for the West Ridge coal mine located in Sea Canyon as a truckload outboss. The mine is now closed. Document number 2 is a detailed account of Philip's 2 Bigfoot sightings on May 4th, 2012 and again on October 16, 2013 while driving home from work at the West Ridge coal mine. Document number 3 is my sighting, Ron Johnson, and my cousin Kevin, who was with me on May 12, 2012. The following is a photo of the location of Ron, myself, and Kevin's sighting location. Philip and myself have been setting out gifts of different fruits and vegetables for Sasquatch near where my sighting was, with positive results. Philip has a photo of something black watching him from the trees close by. The photo is very ambiguous, just showing a black spot in the trees, but I did try enhancing it, and it does look like it has a mouth, nose, and eyes on it. I will dig it out of my archives and send it to you. Doc number 1, email sent to Ron Johnson from Philip. Copy of email sent to Ron from Mr. Jensen. Philip Jensen writes, Hi Ron. On Friday, May 4th at approximately 4:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I had my own sighting of something. It all started on my way home from work. I had just left the West Ridge mine where I work and was driving along. I happened to look off to the side of the road and something was sitting next to a large rock. I say something because I had no idea what it was. My first instinct was a gorilla, but it was the wrong color. It was reddish brown color, but its shape was close to a gorilla. Its back was to me, but I could see that it had shoulders, and the hair was about 4 inches long. The hair was blowing in the wind. It was sitting up. I wasn't able to see anything of its face or front. I should have stopped and gone back to look at it, but I had to get to town to pick up my wife. I came back about 2 hours later with my wife. I wanted another set of eyes and a witness in case we found something. We crossed a fence and went to where I thought it had been, but we couldn't find any good tracks or much sign that something had been there. When we couldn't find anything right away, my wife wanted to go. I wanted to look around some more and maybe do some calls to see if anything responded, but my wife was impatient and insisted that we leave, so I didn't get any evidence, but I know I saw something. I've been trying to think what else it could be, but I haven't had any luck. I thought it might be a bear, but it had shoulders, and bears don't have shoulders, and I've never seen a bear that color before. I thought maybe a cow, a horse, a coyote, a wolf, a llama. Nothing matches the body shape. We watched Rise of the Planet of the Apes on Saturday night, and what I saw was a lot like the back of a gorilla, but the color was different. The fur was different, and the build little different. I really don't know what it is that I saw, but I know what it wasn't. I am keeping my eyes more open than ever now as I travel around that area. My sighting was very short, only a few seconds long, but is really sticking with me. It was on the Sea Canyon Road going from Highway 123 from Highway 6 to East Carbon at approximately mile marker 8. It was on the west side of the road. If I hadn't looked right at it, I would not have seen it. It blended in well with the surroundings. I just wanted to let you know what happened to me. Thanks, PJ. This is also the same location where Ron Johnson and Kevin had their sighting. Document 2. Philip Jensen discusses his second sighting with Ron. This is the account of my sighting of an unknown animal from May 2012 to date. The closest animal that I've seen that is close to what I saw is the subject of the Patterson-Gimlin film from 1967. Here's my story. On Friday, May 2012, I left work at approximately 4:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time as usual. I was driving southbound on Sea Canyon Road at approximately 60 miles per hour. The wind was blowing strongly that afternoon, so I slowed down. As I reached the stretch near milepost 9, I noticed at a distance that I thought was a dead tree. It was about the right size and color. I didn't remember seeing a dead tree there before, so I kept looking. As I approached the figure, I realized that I could not see through the figure as you would a normal tree. This thing was solid. As I got closer, I also realized the figure was not that of a tree, more like a gorilla sitting upright. That was my first impression. The shape was approximately correct, but the proportions were different. It did have a conical crown on its head, and the trapezius muscles were enormous. They reminded me of the Cardassian neck from the Star Trek. As I passed the animal, I noticed that the hair was blowing in the wind. The hair actually parted, and I saw what I thought to be pale pinkish skin, similar to a long-haired dog skin but lighter. I did not see an undercoat, like on a long-haired dog. The hair was approximately 6 inches long. The animal was sitting next to a large rock that went just below the armpits of the animal. It had shoulders and 2 arms hanging below. The animal was sitting or crouching. I then rounded a bend in the road and lost sight of the animal. I wasn't able to see it in my rearview mirror due to the direction of the turn. The closest that I got to the animal was approximately 60 to 70 feet. It was directly beyond a barbed wire fence on the west side of the road. My sighting lasted approximately 6 to 7 seconds. It took me a few moments for my brain to comprehend what I had just seen. My first instinct was that I had seen a cinnamon-colored massive gorilla, but my brain could not believe what my eyes were telling it. I have lived in this area most of my life, and I have never seen anything like this before. Later that evening, my wife and I returned to the area where I had seen the animal. We searched all around and could not find any sign of it. No footprints or hair, nothing. We left after an hour of searching. The following Monday, May 7th, I returned to the site after work to search again. This time I found what could be a footprint, but it was severely degraded. I measured the rock by which the animal was sitting or was crouched. The rock measures 4 to 4.5 feet high. By my estimation, that makes the animal sitting down to the crown of its head about 6 to 6.5 feet tall. That's while sitting. When standing on 2 legs, I estimate that it would have been 8 to 8.5 feet tall. I also found that there were 3 branches that had been broken from a pinyon juniper tree and placed in a C formation below. I took some pictures that I still have on my phone, but I don't know how to retrieve them. While looking at the C formation, I suddenly had the feeling that I was being watched. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I became very uneasy. That's when I heard a cow move from some bushes approximately 75 to 100 yards away. What I find very peculiar about this, that I hadn't seen any cows for several weeks. I honestly thought that they had been moved to their summer ranges. Then I remembered something that I had read about Sasquatch imitating wildlife in the areas. I immediately gathered myself up and left. I did not see what made the sound, and I did not see any cattle in the area until the following autumn. After my sighting, I spent a lot of time thinking about what I had seen. I tried to determine if I had misidentified known animal. I picked up a book by the Audubon Society that describes animals that are native to the area. I carefully considered each large mammal to see if that is what I had seen. Nothing else matches the description. Then in July, I was watching a program where the Patterson-Gimlin film was shown. When the subject of the film turns its back on the camera and walks away, I jumped up from my chair and shouted, "That's what I saw!" And it was. The proportions were correct, but the color was not. The subject of the film most closely represents what I saw that day. I have also had another possible recent sighting of the same animal that I have not mentioned to you yet. It happened on October 16, 2013. Again, I was driving home from work down the same Sea Canyon Road. This time, I was farther down the road, closer to Highway 123. I looked to my right and noticed what looked like a cinnamon-colored animal standing on 2 legs, trying to hide behind a tree. but the tree was way too small for him. Then I saw the face looking back at me. It was a face halfway between a human and a gorilla. In my opinion, it had a strong brow ridge, and the eyes were lost in the shadow. The nose was wide, but I could see where the nostrils were. The sighting was only a couple of seconds, so I didn't get as much detail as my first sighting. It may have been the same animal that I saw in 2012, or a completely different specimen. I'm not sure. I thought about turning around, but there was not a safe place to turn around in the area, and I didn't want to risk getting hit by a coal truck. I went back to look for evidence the following day. I didn't find much of anything. I did find what could be a track, but it was degraded to where the details were gone. But the general size and shape were correct. I haven't reported this to you or the BFRO because I'm not sure about the exact location of the tree where I was standing. And it was such a brief sighting, lasting only 1 to 2 seconds. But I am convinced that we have something roaming the Book Cliffs area that closely resembles Sasquatch. Both sightings happened at the same time of day, approximately 4:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Both sightings were on the west side of the Sea Canyon Road. The lighting was good for both sightings. In both sightings, the figure was massive. I cannot think of any other animal that matches the description of what I saw on either sighting, except the Sasquatch. It is the only animal with the correct size, shape, color, and mass of the animals that I saw. Please let me know if you have any questions or need anything else. Document number 3, Ron Johnson and Kevin Aldridge, sighting, May 13, 2012. I received an email from Mr. Philip Jensen, PJ, in Utah, is what Ron Johnson writes, stating that he might have seen a Bigfoot Sasquatch on the side of the road below the West Ridge mine where he is employed. This is located at the west end of Carbon County, Utah, in the Roan Cliffs on the West Tavaputs Plateau. I told him in an email that I would go there and take a look for evidence. On May 8, 2012, I went to Sea Canyon and parked at the gate to the mine and walked down the west side of the road approximately 2 miles, then proceeded back up the road to my truck, looking for tracks, hair, or anything unusual that might be around. I tried some calling with no results. The coal truck traffic was quite heavy that day, so I decided to drive down to a dirt road that parallels the mountains just below the mouth of the canyon and continued my search at that point. I stayed on the west side of the highway since that is the side Philip had his sighting. I crisscrossed back and forth looking for some kind of evidence, but still found nothing. It was getting late in the evening, so I decided to go home, then come back at night to try some calling. I came back around 11 p.m. and tried doing some calls in different locations with no results. The next day I did the same thing, but further to the west from the highway with no results. The next day I tried the same thing, but on the east side of the highway, not seeing anything. There is a high bench on the east side and I came back at night to try calling again. No results. Friday and Saturday I looked again with no results. On Sunday, May 13, 2012, I was in Price, Utah and stopped at my cousin's house, Kevin. I asked Kevin if he would go up Sea Canyon to see where the Bigfoot sighting was, and he agreed to go. I didn't have any of my equipment with me and decided not to spend much time there. This turned out to be a big mistake, not having my cameras with me. We arrived at the dirt road at the base of the Book Cliffs, and I showed him the general areas where the sightings occurred. We then drove about 1 mile west on the dirt road and looked for a moment. While driving back to the highway at approximately a quarter mile before reaching pavement, I saw a very tall, dark-colored animal standing in a small clearing. The area is mostly pinyon pine and juniper and is very rocky. I stopped my Jeep and backed up to where I could get a better look at it. I pressed my chin against the steering wheel and watched it. Kevin started to get a little excited, telling me, "Do you see it? Do you see it?" I tell him, "Yes, I do see it." We sat there for a short moment. Then I told Kevin to get out very slowly. I got out, but when I looked, it was gone. Another short moment goes by and Kevin asks if we could just walk down there. I tell him, not yet, that I'm getting a message telling us to stay back, do not approach, and feeling very apprehensive about this. After a few minutes, we started to walk towards where it was standing, and about halfway to where it was standing, Kevin drops down onto his knee, looking under all the trees, telling me that there were 2 other ones. I could hear a loud grunting noise and thumping as if a heavy animal was close by and running away, but never seen what it was. Kevin told me that it was standing upright and then it ran off. We continued to where the first one was standing, and by looking at the trees in the area, I knew it had to be at least 8 feet tall. I went back to the next day and measured a branch that was next to the head, and it had to be approximately 8.5 feet tall and was about 90 feet from the edge of the dirt road. We started walking over to the edge of the trees, and again, a message came into my mind saying, "Stay back, do not approach." After a short time, when I felt better about proceeding, we could see 3 unknown animals going down over a hill. When I noticed them, they were almost entirely gone behind the hill, and we couldn't identify them. They were headed southwest, away from the mountains, towards the lower valley. What I saw was approximately 8.5 feet tall, standing still on 2 legs. It had a dark reddish-black matted hair from its head down to its feet. The head was very large and wide-looking, as if it didn't have a neck, and looked as if it was attached to its shoulders. It had large brow bones that were very noticeable, and the nose was very wide and flat. The top of the head had to look like a crown, but wasn't real high. The lips were very large or fat, and could see teeth sticking out. That's odd, is that it had long, straggly, gray-colored beard that went down almost to its waist. For some strange reason, I knew that it was a male, and it was very old. There were streaks of gray hair that could be seen on its torso, arms, and legs that made it look old. The shoulders seemed to be wide with very muscular arms hanging straight down. One bicep looked bigger than my 2 legs put together. The hair, I'm guessing, would be 3 to 4 inches long, except on the cheeks was longer but sparser. All the time it stood there watching us, it never moved. It seemed like a statue. To me, some of its features seemed more human-like and not so much primate, but that's only my opinion. Ron Johnson. RMSO responds. Hi Ron, Kelly Shaw with RMSO. Appreciate the detail of the sighting reports. Very intriguing. We investigated a Bigfoot sighting last fall, roughly 40 miles southwest near Huntington. Also, on April 6, 2012, we had a terrifying Bigfoot encounter north of where all you reported your sightings. Same type of terrain too. Below is the deepest footprint left behind after it jumped over a 15-foot wide river. The track was over 17 inches long and over 8 inches wide at the toe splay. It hid in the tree line above the river from us. It then stomped around, breaking branches in what felt like an intimidation attempt to scare us away. After dark fell and we cast the footprint, the intimidation did scare us away. Yeah, when the sun went down, it's all Jenny and I could handle. Neither one of us was armed besides some crappy wrist mace, that jogger's mace, and we did not want to hang around with something that was being that aggressive towards us, leaving these giant footprints. We found several of them, but where it had jumped the river, just barely clearing the water, it sunk in about 5 inches deep there, and we felt the ground shake after it jumped the river. I thought we were back in there with the moose in the willows, and then we found the tracks, saw how fresh they were, and saw where they headed up into the tree line, and that's when it started pacing back and forth, stomping, breaking branches, and we stayed there nearly 2 hours until the sun went down, and that's when we hiked back to the vehicle and got out of there. There's also another Bigfoot sighting report where the Bigfoot threw a log at a deer hunter that's less than 20 miles from that location. So this location that you're describing that we went to visit, it's surrounded by Bigfoot sightings. The Book Cliff area is no joke. There's a lot of game, a lot of food, and a lot of Bigfoot sightings. I will leave in the description of this video the blog post of their original written report and photos. I'll also leave a link to our experience and the one where it threw the log at the hunter. I hope you guys enjoyed a look around the area where Ron, Kevin, and PJ all had their Bigfoot sightings. 3 different people, different sightings, collaborating. to help each other try and identify what is exactly going on. I'll tell you what's going on. There's a Bigfoot in this area. I believe I saw the Bigfoot just a little north of here in Indian Canyon. Gigantic. 8.5, 9 feet tall. It took a while to sink in exactly what I was looking at. My eyes were seeing Bigfoot, but my mind was saying no. I was in complete denial. It took a while for me to just, admit, hey, Kelly, that's what you saw. The thing is I saw it from about a quarter mile away. There was also some people the other direction, a quarter mile. So looking at those people, the largest of the guys that were over 6 feet, and then looking at the Bigfoot a quarter mile the other direction, it gave me a size comparison, and this Bigfoot was just massive, twice as wide as any of those guys, and he was 8 to 9 feet tall and probably more towards 9 feet tall. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.